Yes, I do sound like this. Yes, I'm totally fine. Yes, I have tea. It's gonna be that kind of video. Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. And yes, my voice has been getting progressively worse the entire day. I feel fine. It just can't talk. That's the only real problem. But let's go ahead and dive into this. I already did all the stuff. Already have all the things going. We're going to go ahead and dive into the most awkward late pledge video of all time. Awkward only because of the fact that I'm going to sound like this the entire video. But before we dive into any of that, a quick word from our sponsor, Gamefound. Over on Gamefound, in one day, Castle of Burgundy Special Edition is finally launching, with like 32,000 people following the campaign. This is the third iteration of Castle of Burgundy being brought to your table, deluxeified who knows what, miniatures for the castles, new art, new graphics, new components, new overlays, new everything, and they're working together with the audience, with you, to decide what it is that this version will be, what kinds of upgrades, what kind of art, what kinds of adjustments, to make sure it's the best possible version for you. In any case, this is a late pledge video. I've done these before. I'll do these again. In general, the rule of thumb here is I have 100 games to go over. 100 games I'm going to be covering. We're going to have games that we'll have the links to everything not in the description down below because there's too many. The YouTube description will not let me put all the stuff down below. They will be in the pinned comments. I will have timestamps down below, links in the top 2 pinned comments. There'll be one pinned comment for all the new late pledges that we're about to dive into now, and then a second pinned comment for all the ones we've already dove into in multiple videos. In general, because I do this video series every 3 to 4 months, I do divide it up into the 2 sections of older campaigns we've already covered multiple times, and the newer campaigns that this is the first time I'm doing a late pledge coverage on. And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and start this off with Senjutsu Battle for Japan. Senjutsu Battle for Japan is a game of tactics, a game of think BattleCon, but with a miniature board, which you're playing and trying to plan around what your opponents are going to be doing. They had a whole bunch of stuff going on in Kickstarter. Senjutsu, this is available to late pledge. I will try not to say this is available to late pledge after every single game. I have a bad habit of doing that. But let's go ahead and close that tab. And out of the way, we have Steam Up, A Feast for Dim Sum. Steam Up is a Feast for Dim Sum is a game of trying to rotate the board as you gather dim sum to match various cards, using the season ability as much as possible, trying to get as many points based on your specific unit, your specific character. That's the one I'm looking for. The specific character you use and the way they score and their competitive advantage. A little on the light side, but a game of set collection and a bunch of powers and abilities. Even though we have 4 Glory Champions expansion and 4 Glory second printing. This is, well, 4 Glory. 4 Glory, deck building game. You have a bunch of factions of gladiators. You have the patrons and the money you're managing. You have your tactics cards you're going to be using against each other as you battle for the various arenas of combat, as you try to figure out the best way to combine everything, to mix and match, and to build out your most efficient deck in this deck building gladiator experience. That's 4 Glory. We have City of the Great Machine, and we have Malware on my machine. City of the Great Machine. City of the Great Machine, this is going to be a one versus many hidden movement game, where the one is the hidden movement part. A little bit different than the usual kind of situation you have in these games. Or is it one? I think it's one. I played this a long time ago. I don't remember all the details exactly how it plays. I'm pretty sure it's the many. The many have hidden movement. The one controls the machine. The many have hidden movement. You're controlling this AI machine, or one player is controlling this AI machine. The other players are trying to incite revolt across the city. Very interesting game, very thematically driven. City of the Great Machine. We have Hanamikoji, Geisha's Road. This is one which is an absolutely amazing game. I love the original Hanamikoji. I have not played Geisha's Road. I will play Geisha's Road at some point because I backed this game. Now, before you do back this game, do walk in knowing the shipping's going to be like, a third of the price of the pledge, but that's the price of having a smaller box game with a lot of stuff, and I believe it's all being air freighted, or a lot of it's being air freighted. But Hanamikoji, Geisha's Road, while the $60 price tag and the $20 extra, $80 is way more than I would recommend paying for this game, the game itself is absolutely amazing, and you're getting a lot of content here. If you don't want to pay that much, go ahead and just find regular Hanamikoji online for like $15-20 and call it a day. If you want all the content, Hanamikoji Geisha's Road is one of the better 2-player head-to-head experiences I have in my collection. From there we have Monsterpocalypse, the board game. Monsterpocalypse, the board game from Mythic Games. This is bringing you the Monsterpocalypse line of games, but now more board game friendly in the sense that it's going to be cheaper, more accessible, improved graphic design, things like that, while still maintaining the Monsterpocalypse line for those who want to heavily dive into it past that. This is a game that has been generally decently well rated. I want to dive into this one more. I had a chance to cover the basic introduction, but not the wide amount of content there is for this game. Monsterpocalypse is a game of having monsters, and basically monsters going head to head as they throw each each other into buildings, as they throw other units into each other, basically just trampling through a city, causing rampage, and hopefully taking out your opponents. This game is expensive. It will not be cheap. The shipping's not going to be cheap. The amount of stuff you have in this game, this is basically a miniature extravaganza, a ton of things, solid miniatures, but an absolute ton of content for Monsterpocalypse. We have the Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim the Adventure Game. This was over on Gamefound. This is basically an RPG adventure game as you wander around the world of Skyrim, as you go on different quests, as you engage in combat, as you build up your character stats. It's a somewhat light game, but a very solid adventure game. Very solid in terms of building up your stats, in terms of engaging in combat, and trying to figure out the way to actually build out your character and to manage the imposing threat that's advancing upon the kingdom. You can play it solo, you can play with other players. This is Skyrim the Adventure Game from Modiphius Entertainment. Then we have Honeybuzz Fall Flavors. This is, as you might imagine, the expansion to Honeybuzz. You can get the original Honeybuzz here as well. You can get the expansion to Honeybuzz. You can get the deluxe. You can get the not deluxe. There's a lot of options here. The deluxe, especially if you're getting the base game and the expansion, the deluxe will cost you an arm and a leg. You do not need it. It's nice to have, but you definitely do not need it. The game is great without the deluxe components. Even the base game feels like a deluxe experience already. This is the expansion to Honeybuzz as well as the base game available at the same time. We have Hegemony. Lead your class to victory. Need a tea break here, 1 second. Hegemony, lead your class to victory. €59 for this game. This is basically a game of an asymmetric economic game. That's what I kept trying to say economist. Asymmetric economic game in which you're managing the different factions, the middle class, the upper class, the lower class, and the government as you try to vie for their own different versions of what they're trying to look for, starting new businesses, recruiting workers for those businesses, having a little bit of hybrid or imposing policies. Each one heavily has a degree of high asymmetry in this very strong economic game. We have the Realm of Shadows Pledge Manager. The Realm of Shadows is a trio of 3 games, all soloable, very solidly rated from One Stop Co-op Shop. I'm on the Kickstarter page, so I don't see everything. I'm not on the Kickstarter, I'm on the late pledge page, so I don't see everything, but this is Realm of Shadows. We have Weather Machine Pledge Manager. Weather Machine from Eagle Griffin Games, from Latal Lacerda. This is their newest game. All the other games, you have the deadline of May 19th, so that's unfortunately passed. But this is for May 31st. Weather Machine is going to be over here. Also, I'm realizing, 8 minutes into the video, I forgot to say, there's no to back or not to back this week. Unfortunately, there's not enough games. There's not enough. There's enough games if I really wanted to cover them, but I wanted to do a late pledge manager anyway, eventually. And there's only a few Kickstarters out there at the moment, so we'll do a longer to back or not to back next week. This week is the late pledge manager. We have the Valeria Card Kingdoms universe of games. We have the Dice Kingdoms of Valeria, Thrones of Valeria, and Siege of Valeria, a trick-taking game, a tower defense game, and a roll and write game, all bringing you parts of the Valeria universe in different implementations. Very intrigued. I like the Valeria universe in general. Not all of them have been keepers for me, but I'm intrigued. I like trick-taking right now, or I like trick-taking these days. I like roll and write, and I'm very intrigued by the tower defense as well. That's 3 times I said the word intrigued. That's too many in one game. We have Mindbug. Mindbug is a game designed by Richard Garfield, a 2-player head-to-head game. Mindbug basically has you having your factions attack each other, but this fascinating use of the mind bug in which you can use your opponent against them. So the mind bug is a fascinating time. You have to be very mindful of when you play your cards, knowing that your opponent has their mind bug and can use it against you. So you need to be very mindful of that. And I've said mindful twice, along with mind bugs. That's too many times as well. We have Call of Kilforth, a fantasy quest game. This is from Tristan Hall. This is the 3rd game in the Call of Kilforth series. They return to Kilforth in this brand new game. We have Call of Kilforth. We have Something Kilforth and Something Kilforth. Shadows of Kilforth and Quests of Kilforth, I think. I don't remember. The Shadows is one of them. The other one I don't remember offhand. But either way, this is the 3rd game in the Call of Kilforth series. And, Gloom of Kilforth. There we go. Gloom of Kilforth. But you don't need the prior games to play this. You can dive straight into this one with ignoring the rest. You're totally fine in that one. This is the Call of Kilforth series by Tristan Hall. From there we have Voyages. Voyages is a PDF print and play download. You can spend £4 today and get this today. This is available right now. I'm not going to be covering this one in the future, probably not, because again, it's a weird kind of late pledge hybrid. But this was a roll and write, a print and play roll and write available on Kickstarter. I've played this. I enjoyed it. I've only played the first map. I need to dive into the rest. But this is Voyages, solid game, postmark games available on to late pledge and all that, or to download. We have Harariblades of Honor, a cooperative campaign game which you're going to be wandering around the map. There's going to be 2 different phases. There's going to be an exploratory phase where you wander around the map as you try to engage with the story around you, and there's going to be more of a dungeon crawler phase where you use your abilities in more of a kind of a dungeon crawler game. Harakiri has 2 different phases to it. It did fairly well on Kickstarter, €654,000. It's not bad at all. This is Harariblades of Honor. We have 9 Minute Kingdom. This is a little bit of a puzzly game, which I wish I was on the Kickstarter page right now. Basically, this is a game of you have a bunch of cards in your hand. You're trying to play those cards to fulfill different scoring objectives objectives as you draft those cards. Looks very simple, very engaging, very solid game. 9-minute kingdom. We have Borderlands, Mr. Torque's Arena of Badassery. This is a dungeon crawler. You're going to have your heroes, your characters. You're going to be entering into an arena as you try to take down all the hordes of enemies wandering towards you. You're going to be using your weapons. You're going to have in-between phases where you use your vending machines to level up in classic Borderlands style. I believe there's a way to level up in-game as well if you're doing a single shot instead of a campaign. But overall, this is Borderlands. A lot of rolling dice, a lot of using weapons, and a lot of just trying to destroy your enemies. We have Death Roads All-Stars, a racing game in which you're going to be using your car, building up your car, drafting the unique weapons that you'll equip to your car, to your vehicle, as you try to slowly wander around the map, taking out your opponents, knocking them back, slowly stripping the armor from their vehicles and destroying them, or alternatively just winning while they're still in the game. We have 11, the football manager of the board game. This is from Portal Games. 11 is a game about managing a football team. That's basically it. You're not playing football. You're managing a football team. That's all I have on this one. We have the Tiles of the Arabian Nights by Holy Grail Games. Tiles of the Arabian Nights, combining a degree of set collection, a degree of grabbing these tiles with a degree of storytelling at the same time, a degree of telling people why you did these things, how it interweaves and interlaces with your story. So it's a little bit of both, a little bit of a lighter game plus story-driven, trying to incentivize why you should win, how you did well. We have Fractal Beyond the Void from Board Game Inc. Fractal Beyond the Void is a 4X game that's aiming to be very accessible in terms of its length. It's not going to be last light accessible. It's not going to be an hour long, but it can give you a 2-hour long 4X experience. Kind of think of it as a step down from Eclipse. It's not Twilight Imperium, it's not Eclipse, it's the step before those things, giving you very fast-paced exploration, combat, tech cards, all those things in Fractal Beyond the Void. We have Catapult, Feud, Hydra. This is the expansion to Catapult Feud, all the subsequent content for it, as well as all the base content. If you want to get all the ways you can knock down a castle by flicking things into it, this is Catapult Feud Hydra. We have Blazon from Chad Elkins from 20th Century Games. Blazon is a game of managing different scoring objectives. You're going to be emblazoning your shield. You're going to be trying to create your crest, and you're going to be doing that by trying to be mindful of the way everything scores as you try to get the various areas of the shield filled out. It's one of those games that's going to have a lot of points, and you're just trying to be mindful of the different ways you can score points and the way that's the most efficient for you. We have Rise of the Necromancers from Mythic Games. This is part of their Phoenix line, which is where they work with another company, and they have another company's prior game while being brought back to life, hence the Phoenix line. Rise of the Necromancers was already a game that already existed, already had an expansion. They're bringing it back with more expansions and with miniature upgrades for absolutely everything. This is Rise of the Necromancers, a little bit of area control as you wander around the map, as you have your Necromancer, as you build your undead hordes, as you level up your Necromancer, as you become as you deal with the academies. Lots of fun things going on in this one. This is Rise of the Necromancers. We have Skytear Horde. Skytear Horde from Skytear Games. Excellent game. This is a game of basically going against, it's either solo or co-op, although there is a kind of a head-to-head competitive mode as well, asymmetric competitive mode, but basically let's focus on the solo and co-op for a second. The general idea of the game is you're going to have your decks, you're going to be shuffling your decks together and going facing off against one of the hordes. You're trying to outpace them, outlast them as they place down cards, as they try to take you down, as you try to take them down. It's very tense, it's very tactical, it's all about how you feel. You constantly feel threatened the entire time, but you actually have the capabilities to do well. It just takes a lot of puzzling out. And additionally, you can get all the other Skyter content as well in case you want to get any of that stuff. Then we have Final Girl Series 2. Final Girl Series 2, I want to say Season 2, but it's clearly Series 2. It's just in my head, it's Season 2. Final Girl is a solo game of surviving a horror movie. You are the Final Girl. You're trying to face off in a location against the baddie with a specific Final Girl. All those three combined to give you a unique set of, well, stuff that you're engaging with. Series 2 brought us a bunch more locations, a bunch more Final Girls, all this content, a ton of stuff, a Calyx Ready Cube in case you want absolutely everything. There is a ton of content for this game. This thing crossed like $2 million. There's a lot of hype around Final Girl, and it's available to late pledge. I've only said it 3 times so far. I'm doing pretty decently. We have the relaunch of Collab from Portal Dragon Games. Collab is a game that has 2 puzzles going on simultaneously. There's the puzzles of how you gather resources, and then there's the puzzles of how you actually play your cards and where they're going in your own little 4x4 grid, and both those are separate puzzles. Trying to build up the castle, trying to take actions, trying to play cards, trying to draw cards, trying to get resources, that's all one half of the game. But then from there you're placing down your cards and trying to figure out the scoring criteria of those cards. What they score for adjacency for, what's going to be activated tokens, how they're going to lay out in your grid, and how you're going to maximize your scoring in these 2-sided aspect of Collab. We have Total War Rome, the board game. This is a bit of a area control game, a bit of a, not really 4X in the typical sense, but you will be wandering around the map. You will have your units, you'll have your fog of war, you'll see an army marching towards you on the map, but you won't necessarily know what's in that army. You just know there's an army, you don't know what that army comprises of, and so the question is, how do you react? Do you go on the offensive? Do you go on the defensive? Do you spread out? Do you retreat? There's so many different aspects going on as far as what you're doing in this game, giving you classic elements of game design that you're used to with a little bit of a twist in terms of the implementation of the video game at the same time. We have Marvel Zombies, the Zombicide game. I do recommend checking the shipping prices on this one and checking the comments. There's a lot of drama about this one, but if you are interested in this game, this is where, if you're ready, pledge on the Kickstarter, even for $1, do not late pledge here, I guess, okay? Marvel Zombies, the Zombicide game. This is, again, check the shipping prices on this. This is a very expensive game, both in terms of the base price as well as shipping additionally, but this is a lot of game goodness here. This is my favorite Zombicide to date. Love this game. Very happy to get this game. This is a solid game. And again, I always say this because I always feel I need to disclaim it. I didn't say that about the past 3 Zombicides that came out. This is the first Zombicide since Black Plague that I've said that I've enjoyed it more than Black Plague. So, listen, I'm not saying I'm right or not. I'm just saying I don't say it all the time. But either way, Thunder Road Vendetta by Restoration Games. Give me 1 second here. Thunder Road Vendetta, Restoration Games. This is bringing you back Restoration Games, the original Thunder Road. This is giving you a whole bunch of stuff as you try to race around, accomplishing goals, winning the race, taking out your opponents, flying the helicopter around, taking advantage of a fleet of whether motorcycles or giant semi-truck, whatever rig it is, whole bunch of things in this ultimately a racing, fighting, shoot 'em up re-implementation of the original Thunder Road. We have Seas of Havoc from Rock Manor Games, a deck-building worker placement game. Is it deck-building worker placement? It's deck-building worker placement. It is. Deck-building worker placement game. That's interesting. I didn't even think of that. It is deck building and it's worker placement. So it has both those aspects. But basically, it's a deck building worker placement game, but also a pirate game at the same time. You can have the central board where you're engaging your ship, moving around, taking pot shots at the enemies, ramming into them, trying to gather treasure, all those things. Meanwhile, every single round has a degree of worker placement as you place your skiffs on different areas, partially to build your deck, although it's not deck placement worker placement. It's not deck building worker placement in the sense that your deck building augments your worker placement, kind of the other way around. Your worker placement gathers you cards that you can use in the sailing around, shooting people phase. So it is deck building worker placement, but not like Arnak, not like Dune Imperium, not like Endless Winter. Totally different implementation of the mechanic, but bringing it all in a fighting pirate game, which you're trying to take out your opponents. Then we have Trekking Through History from Underdog Games. Trekking Through History is the third game in the line of trekking through the parks, trekking through the national parks, trekking the world, and trekking through history. Trekking Through History is almost a little lighter than Trekking the World. I haven't played Trekking the National Parks, so I can't compare that. But this is a game of gathering cards in your timeline, trying to be mindful as you have a degree of set collection of gathering cards, trying to take advantage of jumping back through time. That's Trekking Through History from what's the name of the company? From Underdog Games. We have Wreckland Run, a solo game from the creators of Warp's Edge. It's from Renegade Game Studios. Wreckland Run is, well, from the same people who did Warp's Edge. It's a solo game that you're going to be managing your vehicle over here as other enemies are slowly wandering around trying to encircle you and shoot you on a regular basis. You're trying to build up your vehicle, gather the weapons you need, place the dice you need to place, trying to figure out the strategy, trying to figure out each of the individual missions and the unique aspects they have to them as you basically try to take down your opponents, try to take down the enemy. Fast-paced solo from Scott Alms and Renegade Games. We have Rolling Heights from Alderac Entertainment Group. Rolling Heights is a fantastic game. My favorite game in the versions of Quacks of Quedlinburg, of Cubitos. We have Rolling Heights, which I don't know what's going to last in my collection because I don't need all 3 of these games. And we hear sirens outside. Sirens going past. But either way, Rolling Heights, this is a solid game. You're going to be rolling your meeples into a box. You're going to be gathering building materials. You're going to be building out your buildings. It is immensely satisfying to play this game. I highly, highly recommend it. We have Astronauts from Indie Boards and Cards. Astronauts is a game of, well, Anne's End. It's basically Anne's End rethemed, as well as changes to the mechanics, making it a drop more accessible. As far as which one I prefer Astronauts. Which one's for you? Don't know, because Anne's End is well loved, and for me it was kind of like, it was good. Astronauts isn't perfect, don't get me wrong, but Astronauts for me is better than Anne's End is. The one thing I miss about Anne's End is I like the fixed card market more than the variable card market, but you can't have everything, and so Astronauts from Indie Boards and Cards. We have Deep Rock Galactic, the board game from Mood Publishing. This is a dungeon crawler from the featuring the video game Deep Rock Galactic, in which you're going to be taking control of a variety of dwarfs, utilizing your team, gathering crystals, fighting off the various enemies, rolling your dice, trying to figure out what you need to do in this dungeon crawler slash No, it's just dungeon crawler. It's a dungeon crawler is what it is, with specific goals and missions and scenarios based around it, all themed around the dwarf mining game. We have Block by Block, the Insurrection game. This is basically, well, it's a game about uprising. It's a game about insurrection. It's a game which you go block by block, trying to take down the police, trying to riot, trying to do what you need to do. Very, very interesting theme in terms of just the theme. Is you have to be comfortable with the theme, but past that, this is a very unique game and decently well rated. This is the third edition of the game. We have Iron Force from Brain Games USA. Iron Force is a game of, well, flicking. It's a game of flicking. That's what it is. You're going to be flicking on 2 different levels, trying to accomplish the goals in any individual scenario that you're going through. This is basically flick 'em up, but flick 'em up on multiple levels, literally. Not like just literally. It's got multiple levels to the game. And so you're trying to take advantage of those, being mindful of your scenario goals, being mindful of your enemies' cards and the activation sequence, which enemies have activated at what points, and trying to utilize those to basically take down your opponents. It's got like this little launch here. You'll launch things to the next level. That's Iron Force. We have Tandaya from Red Mojo Games. Tandaya, the game that's constantly compared to Spirit Island, and yet I still do not have a feel for how this game plays. Tandaya is one of those games where I never managed to get a good feel or sense for what you actually do in the game from period to period. There's disasters, there's gods, there's all these things going on. I just don't have a sense of the game, sequencing, and so there's not much I can really say past Tandaya. It looks cool. I want it. That's where we are with Tandaya. We have Earth from Connor McGuey from Inside Up Games. Earth is a tableau building engine in which you're basically trying to plant things down, you're trying to gather resources, you're going to be taking actions, opponents are going to benefit from your actions, and you're trying to build up stuff on your cards, you're trying to activate your rows or columns, a lot of fun things going, but ultimately it's a tableau building game. It's a tableau building game which every round you take a few different actions, one of a few different actions, and each action has different perks for yourself as well as for your opponent. So every time you do something, whether it's your turn or the other player's turns, something good is happening to everyone. It keeps everyone a little bit invested and a little bit involved. That's basically Earth. Tableau building, keeping your opponents involved, engagement the entire time, and building out your most efficient tableau. We have Kingdoms Forlorn, Dragons, Devils, and Kings from Into the Unknown. Kingdoms Forlorn is bringing you, what was the term they used? Solo operative. Not really cooperative, not really solo. It's solo operative. You're basically doing your own thing. Now that I think about it, another solo operative game? Another solo operative game would be Batman Everybody Lies from Portal Games that just came out. I'm just thinking in terms of a solo game where you're technically aligned but actually going for your own goals. That actually hits the definition perfectly. But either way, this Kingdoms Forlorn is a solo operative game. It's a game which you're working together. You're trying to take down the enemies in this boss battler and this mob battler game. You're going to have mobs fighting against you. You're going to have bosses fighting against you. You're trying to take them all down. But meanwhile, you each have your own specific story goals you're going for. So you're kind of working together with just a hint and an edge of doing your own thing in this boss battler game from the people who brought you Ains Trespass Odyssey. We have Unfair, the Unfair from the comic book hacker kaiju ocean and solo mode to this game. Unfair from Good Games Publishing, which brings you basically a theme park ride, a theme park building game, which you're going to have multiple decks, you're shuffling together, trying to build out your theme park, trying to take down your opponents, play cards to get in their way, hence the name Unfair, having events that will come out every single round that will just mess with all the players. That's what Unfair is, and this just brings you more decks as well as the solo mode to the game. We have 51st Master State Ultimate Edition. That's the third time Portal Games has come up today. We had 11, we have 51st State, and then we had the thing I just mentioned a minute ago, Batman Everybody Lies. 51st State Ultimate Edition. This is the Ultimate Edition of 51st State. The 51st State had so many different iterations by now. We had 51st State, we had Imperial Settlers, we had 51st State Master Set, we had Imperial Settlers Empires of the North, we had the other one that came after that I don't remember what it's called, and now we have 51st State Ultimate Edition. Or was it Imperial Empires of the North? That might have been what it's called. We have a lot of these games from 51st State, all utilizing the same basic mechanical system, and the Ultimate Edition of 51st State is basically the master set, but with another expansion, all given to you in a single box, so you can get absolutely everything all at once. 51st State was a very solid game, the original 51st State. I loved it when I first got it. 51st State master set, I never quite fell in love with the same way, but everything's available here over on Gamefound. We have Lobotomy 2 specifically, the Manhunt version. Not the Manhunt, Lobotomy 2 Manhunt is the name of the game. This is on Gamefound over here, €79 for the base pledge, plus a whole bunch more for anything else you want. This is giving you a dungeon crawler themed around being in an asylum. You're basically in the asylum, and you're fighting different things, which leads to the evident question the entire time: are you actually fighting bad guys, or are you fighting the various orderlies who are trying to keep you in check, and you're really hurting well-meaning people? That's an interesting question that I don't want to deal with when I play Lobotomy 2 Manhunt. We have Tang Garden Seasons, the final expansion to Tang Gardens. Tang Garden Seasons, the final expansion to Tang Gardens. This is the late pledge for Tang Gardens, giving you absolutely everything, including the newest expansion, including the base game, all the miniatures, absolutely everything you need for Tang Garden. We have Ahau, Rules of Yucatan. This is another one of those games that I didn't get a great feel for how it actually plays. The turn sequencing, I know there's a degree of worker placement, there's a degree of building your own unique tableau in your pyramids, trying to get your own competitive advantage. Past that, there's a degree of trying to plan around where you go and who's going to get there first and how you're going to fight or vie for control over there. But don't worry, you'll get something else if you don't get the spot you want. Whole bunch of things. Ultimately, the game looks beautiful, which is part of the reason I'm compelled by it. The game mechanics sound interesting. This is Ahau, Rulers of Yucatan. We have Earth Under Siege Flashpoint. This is a game I can talk more about. Earth Under Siege Flashpoint is a stealth-based game. A game which 1 to 4 players are going to be going at this cooperative adventure, dealing with either campaign or single-shot games as you wander across alien bases or spaceships or wherever it is you are. I don't actually know where you are in any of these individual things, but you have specific objectives, you have goals, and you're trying to stay under the radar long enough to not have the enemies completely tank you. The enemies, when they start spawning, if they know that you're on the map, they are stronger, they will take you out, they will slowly hunt you down and kill you. You need to stay just enough under the radar that you hopefully can actually make it out alive. This is Earth Under Siege Flashpoint. Eventually you have to pop up and shoot somebody, but don't do it too soon. We have Illiterati by Gap Closer Games. Gap Closer Games who brought you something kitchen something, I think. It might be behind me. Nope, it's somewhere. Whatever it is, they brought you a prior game. This is Illiterati. It might actually be available for late pledge. Is it available for late pledge? Here we go. Rival Restaurant. That's what it is. Rival Restaurants. Illiterati is a ward-based game, a cooperative ward-based game, which 1 to 5 players will be going up against you're the Illiterati. They're the something else, I think. But you're fighting against a variety of evil bosses who are trying to take out literature from the world. And you're going to be going ahead and playing your tiles in order to build out wards, following certain books, building them out, working together with the other players to craft your specific words and narrative as you figure out which of these to go for. You have a body part that needs it needs to have at least 8 letters worth of body parts and at least 3 green letters in there. And so you're trying to figure out how to do this across multiple rounds until you eventually hit down your challenge award and have to figure out that as well. That's Illiterati from Gap Closer Games. We have Solo 175, a legacy game that I don't know much about the actual gameplay. That's why I am with Solo 175. This is another one of those games that I just never got a great feel for how it actually plays. I just know that this is ambitious, it's legacy, lots of things going on, and that's where I am with this. Solo 175, still available to late pledge. We have League of Dungeoneers. This is going to be they don't have the shipping prices yet. I'm just reading off the page. I don't know why. But League of Dungeoneers is a dungeon crawling game, leaning heavily into more classic dungeon crawling. This is going to be much more, I'm trying to think of examples. There's an example of a game that I know that I'm blanking on the name, but this is an old school dungeon crawler, tons of reference, tons of charts, tons of everything. This is something that's not for the faint of heart, but if it's something that you're interested in, there might be a lot here for you. This was a successful print and play that then became a, Kickstarter, what we have here. Then we have Sentinels of the Multiverse Rook City expansion. This is basically the new version of Sentinels of the Multiverse. They are relaunching the game. They have the definitive edition or whatnot after having the full giant $300 all-in for the original. They now are relaunching the entire line, which is great. It sells after all. But Sentinels of the Multiverse, they have the first one, and now they have the Rook City expansion coming out, where you can also get the first edition as well. The base game as well over here. But a whole bunch of just new Sentinels of the Multiverse stuff in case you're interested in that. We have Tiwanaku from Sit Down Games. This is a fantastic game. Really enjoyed this one. The deluxe edition will not hit stores, so this is your last chance to go ahead in the deluxe edition. This is there's a cooperative mode and a solo mode, but it's primarily a competitive mode in which you're trying to deduct information, trying to deduce information, figure out what the puzzle is, figure out what's where so you can get the maximum scoring objective. It's a little bit of logic and deduction, and a little bit of taking the actions correctly and sequencing things out. Very solid game. Really enjoyed Tiwanaku. Phenomenal experience. We have Tidal Blades Rise of the Enfolders. This is, as you might imagine, the expansion of Tidal Blades, but this is not the original Tidal Blades at all. This is a totally different game. This is the dungeon crawling version of Tidal Blades, using the same universe, the same world, but past that being a totally different experience. It's a dungeon crawler. You're going through the various scenarios, the various episodes, trying to tackle the various enemies along the way across a variety of different episodes you'll be fighting against or scenarios you'll be fighting against. Tons of miniatures, tons of content, tons of everything for this game. A lot of fun things happening in this game. We have Small City Deluxe Edition. Small City is going to be this is the deluxe edition of Small City that came out quite some time ago. Very well rated game from Alban Studios. This is a solid game, or supposedly solid game. I haven't actually played this one, so I'm only saying from supposedly over here. But they just had this on Kickstarter, and over here you can go ahead and get all the stuff. The deluxe edition, the winter expansion, all the things for Small City. And then lastly, before we dive into the older campaigns, we have Jurassic World, The Legacy of Isla Nublar from Prospero Hall. This is Jurassic World. Your opportunity to jump into Jurassic World before it hits retail. It will hit retail and it will be cheaper, but you do have a bunch of Kickstarter exclusive stuff over here. The art sleeve, the deluxe tokens, the amber dinosaurs, the extra playable characters, all those things in case you want that. Now keep in mind, it is a legacy game. Factor that in terms of before you value all the deluxe stuff, because you're getting a bunch of Kickstarter extras on a legacy game, but they still are extras. And with that, let's go ahead and take a quick breather while we go ahead to the next batch of games. I'm telling you, I really feel fine. This is just my voice. My voice does not feel fine. I feel fine. Hopefully this does not last for a long time, because it's almost like I do a bunch of videos every day now, and so that's not great. So we'll see how it happens over here. In any case, let's go ahead and dive into the older campaigns. Everything you see here for the rest of the video are stuff we've covered in prior late pledge videos. So if you're interested in these things, we just went through, in case you missed it, we went through, I think it was like 56 campaigns roughly, and we're doing another 44 here. In general, I aim for 100 games every late pledge. I eliminate a bunch of stuff. I eliminate things that don't have a lot of backers. If there's not a lot of interest, there's only so much I can cover. I eliminate things we've covered multiple times. Not everything. Some things I keep covering, some things I don't. I just take out, I pick and choose what I think makes the most sense for these videos, trying to get it down to 100, and down to 100 is a relative term because that's 100 different games that you might be interested in. With that, let's go ahead and dive into it, starting off the Storm Thunder's Heirs of Runes. This one will be available again in the future. This will be continuously available. I like Lazy Square games, which is why I keep talking about this one. I don't know if I'll like Storm Thunder or not. I'm optimistic I will, but we'll see. That's Storm Thunder. We have over here Hell the Last Saga from Mythic Games. This one is hopefully coming soon. This one's taking its sweet time in terms of actually coming. Lots of games will show up. I mean, they've had other games, Kickstarters post this one, already show up. But when this does show up, I'm very excited for it. I'm optimistic that it'll be a very solid experience. Heard a lot of good things people have played this. It's Hell of the Last Saga. We have Nova Eris Renaissance from Ludus Magnus Studios. They're actually just about to launch their newest campaign, The Breach, but Nova Eris Renaissance was there going back to Nova Eris for the first time in a while. A ton of stuff over here, a ton of content, some Assassin's Creed style stuff if I recall correctly. Here we go. No, the Medicchio, that's what it was. This one over here. This is not Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed was a different game. The Medicchio is for Boba Fett, basically, the Mandalorian or whatnot, not Boba Fett. But yeah, some fun stuff over there. We have Darkest Dungeon, another game from Mythic Games. Darkest Dungeon, wow, they have a few games we covered today now. Darkest Dungeon from Mythic Games. This is the video game turned board game. A little bit of a dungeon crawler, whole bunch of interesting things going on. This is one of the few ones that I didn't actually back. Still interested in this one. Miniatures look absolutely fantastic, but I wasn't compelled enough by the gameplay to jump in on this one. Then we have Freedom 5. Freedom 5 from Arcane Wonders. Arcane Wonders has been on a roll for me recently. I was looking at my collection. They have they have Air, Land, and Sea. Critters or whatever, Critters at War. They have Aquatica. They have Foundations of Rome. They have some really solid games that I'm loving that are in my collection, and I'm very excited and looking forward to Freedom 5. The miniatures here are off the chart ridiculous. Miniatures do not make a game, but they might make a game better depending on how good the game actually starts off with. But I really enjoyed my time with Foundations of Rome. I had concerns. I am curious to see how the final game shows up. From there, we have Vindication, Chronicles and Villages and Hamlets expansion. Just way too much Vindication, including a giant big box, everything you need here. I don't know when this one's closing. This is from Orange Nebula, same people who brought you Unsettled. This is a phenomenal game. I love Vindication. Every time I dive into it, I have a good time with it. From there, we have Darwin's Journey. Darwin's Journey, which I'm still excited for, especially after having played Encyclopedia, even though I don't know if the games are remotely similar, but I am very excited for this one. The game looks gorgeous, and I'm hoping it delivers. I'm hoping that this game from Thunderrift Games is a solid game. We'll see. We have Kingdom Rush Elemental Uprising for Lucky Duck Games. This is still available to late pledge, still available. This is the follow-up to Kingdom Rush Elemental Uprising. I like both of them. I'm just really looking forward to the final box so I can finally sit down and table this game. Very excited for this one. We have Soyib Binitin. Soyib Binitin by Ludi Creations. Soyib Binitin is a two-player head-to-head game in which you're basically trying to take the role of either the monster or the miner, trying to take the various gems and crystals out of the miner. A very interesting game, has multiple solo modes. It has a completely unnecessary no-one-needs-to-play mode as well, but a very interesting two-player game from Ludi Creations. We have Mistwood. We have Everdell, New Leaf, and Mistwood. This is the Everdell Complete Collection, giving you all the ways and opportunities to still continue to jump into this one. $200 for absolutely everything for the... Well, not absolutely everything. It does not include the Lux Resource Vessels or the Tales from the Green Acre. And for nearly everything for the game, $200 is a phenomenal price. Again, if you're interested in this game, you should jump in on it. That is a great price. You might have to wait a bit. That's the downside, but it's a great price for the game. We have Stellaris Infinite Legacy. This is going to be the 4X Empire Builder for Stellaris, taken from the video game, giving you, again, the goal here is to give you a 2-hour 4X experience. I'm very curious if they'll achieve that or not. And more and more we're seeing that kind of accessibility hybrid, and with $3 million, I mean, they did phenomenally well. Very intrigued to see what actually happens with this one. We have Neomorphosis. Neomorphosis from Dark Gate Entertainments? No, what's the name of the company? I can't remember the name of the company. Neomorphosis, we'll go with that. Neomorphosis over here, this is basically a kind of combination of Zombicide, of Nemesis, a little bit of both, a little bit of neither. You're in a spaceship, you're dealing with these various beasts and enemies that are spawning. You have your fun miniatures over here. The enemies go through different like migration paths as far as the way they can evolve. It looks very intriguing. Look like a game that the same people that did The Order of the Vampire Hunters. Very intrigued by the game, very curious to see how it is. From there, we have ISS Vanguard. ISS Vanguard from Awakened Realms. This is another one that's taking its time. This is another one that's going on a year and a half at this point. I mean, it's one of those things where when they had the campaign, people were like, that timeline looks a little ambitious. And it was ambitious because it's not yet delivered. But this is ISS Vanguard. Very excited for when it does show up. This is going to be a very well-liked game. We have this is the 815 Scum of the Earth from Hollow Nothing Games. This is a lane battling game, continuing their 1565, 1066, continuing their series of games from Tristan Hall. The art looks amazing. The game looks solid. Very excited for when this one shows up. We have, oh my gosh, Primal Awakening. This is an older title by now. I mean, again, this time just goes on. This is funded in February 2021, so the funding was already 13 months ago. I don't know when it's showing up, but I am very excited for when it does. This was a lot of fun to play through, and I'm looking forward to just when it gets hit my table again. We have Payback Adventures from Tim Fowers. This is the Payback Adventures if you want to get any of the various bundles for the solo wordplay game of Paperback. I believe there's a 2-player mode as well, but designed primarily a solo with 2 players. This is basically cooperative word games. We have Wasted Wilds, Maximum Apocalypse from Mike Nade from Rock Manor Games. This is the continuation of their Maximum Apocalypse world building game, the cooperative roguelike game series. From there we have, give me a second, Path of Light and Shadow Solstice. This is an expansion to a game that came out a very long time ago. Took them quite some time to come out with the expansion from Stronghold Games. This is a very interesting deck building with a board game. Very solid game. The only downside from when I played the original base game is just that it does take a while to play. It is a little on the slow side compared to what I want, but it gave me a very, very good game experience at the same time. We have Fall of the Mountain King from Burnt Island Games. This is one that I'm very excited for, very hyped for. Fall of the Mountain Kings is a phenomenal game of area control, of powers and abilities, of taking control of the various trolls. A very solid follow-up to In the Hall of Mountain King. Totally different game, but a very, very solid game. Really liked it a lot. We have Wild Descent Levon Rising. See what I said already about Storm Thunder, about Lazy Squire Games, and how I'll talk about their games. But Wild Descent Levon Rising is very, very, very solid. I love this game. It's a great game. Just tons of not really boss fighter typically sense, but you have various enemies you'll be fighting against. You're in the wilds. You have a bunch of enemies you'll be fighting against. You're trying to capture some, kill others, level up across 10 games. Levon Rising brings a lot more narrative to the experience, changing up the way you engage with the upgrading, changing up the entire way you engage while keeping the core of the game. Really liked it. Very much looking forward to it. Solid game. We have Distilled from Pavison Games. Distilled is a game of, distilling various alcohols. You're going to have different types of alcohols, different goals you're going for, as you try to be mindful of your washback, I believe it's called, as you try to basically grab your sugars, grab your yeast, grab your whatever, and try to put it all together and distill your particular alcohol, get the various goals or points, let it sit in your cellar. Lots of fun things going on with Distilled. We have Rat Queen to the Slaughter from Deepwater Games. Rat Queen to the Slaughter is giving you a cooperative game of a bunch of rat queens who are trying to basically tower defense. It's tower defense. You can have a bunch of hordes attacking the city. You're using the various abilities of the rat queens to repel them. You have Chronicles of Drunagar Age of Darkness Apocalypse. This is another follow-up to a game. Same way we had Wild Descent Levon Rising. Levon Rising bringing a story to Wild Descent. We have Chronicles of Drunagar Age of Darkness bringing you a whole lot more story and expansion and everything to the world of Wild Descent from Creative Game Studios. We have Oros. Oros is a phenomenal game. This is from what's the name? ASC Games, AESC Games. Oros is a game of being mindful of the various elements as you try to be mindful of popping land into place, of moving it around, of manipulating it, of choosing the abilities you can have so you can level up and try to figure out how you can get to your temples placed and get as many points as possible in Oros. A very solid puzzle. Really enjoyed it. We have Divinus from Lucky Duck Games. This is a legacy game, another legacy game that is also not cheap. These legacy games on Kickstarter in general are not cheap, although it is cheaper than Jurassic World. But Divinus from Lucky Duck Games is another one that I'm very intrigued by while still really needing to dive into it. The 2 scenarios we got were not enough to get a full feel for what this game is bringing to your table. I'm very excited to dive into it. I'm very excited to get my hands in it. But this is Divinus from Lucky Duck Games, another legacy game. And yes, there are replayability packs if you want to buy one of those. We have the Lords of Vala. Lords of Vala Dragon Bond was a very interesting one. This is one in which the players are taking on either generals or dragons, and then at different points in the game you might merge, combining your goals, combining your strength as you try to move around the map and fight different enemies. So again, there's 2 dragons, 2 generals, and it has this degree of merging in it, which leads to a fascinating conversation as far as how you're going to do that. Combine that with a bit of an action programming as you place cards down into a stack and then resolve them, leads to a very interesting puzzle in Lords of Valor Dragonbond. Legend Academy from Eldorado Games. This one was a lot of fun, a little chaotic, a little all over the place, a lot of fun things happening in this game. Just powers and abilities left, right, and center in 14 different ways. Tons of replayability. This is a game I'm very, very excited for, especially once you add the additional expansions, which bring you even more characters, even more just totally different characters with their own unique decks and all that stuff. We have Iridia, The Past We Dare Tread. Iridia from Far Off Games. This is the follow-up to Zia. Not really a follow-up in a typical sense, but it's still a follow-up in a matter of speaking, just because it's the same company. That's the only really overlap we have here. That, and they're both awesome games. Iridia gives you a RPG-esque experience as you wander around the board, as you engage in both this larger world map, then deep dive into small little dungeon crawls, build up your characters, engage in a whole bunch of story points, of combat, lots of things happening here. Very, very incredible game from Far Off Games. Like, absolutely mind-boggling what they've done with this, and I cannot wait to get this one and dive back into it some more. We have Master of the Universe, Fields of Eternia from Arkan Studios. Master of the Universe, this is going to be their version of the Master of the Universe game, bringing you a degree of questing, of adventuring, not really area control, at least not the sense that I got from it, but maybe a little bit of it mixed in. Lots of Master of the Universe stuff over here from Arkan Games. We have Black Rose Wars Rebirth. This is the follow-up to Black Rose Wars. Basically, as a rebirth. You can combine all the original stuff together with this, or you can just dive into Rebirth. Rebirth seemed to give you some elements of these avatars for like solo play or for smaller player counts that will round out the board. That part I'm very excited about, because my biggest problem with Black Rose Wars, well, I had a few problems with it. One of the problems I had with it is it thrives as a 4-player game, and when I had 4 players, there were other 4-player games I wanted to play. So I'm curious to see what these things will do as far as how they mix up the experience. But the spell casting, all that stuff in Black Rose Wars is incredibly solid. Very excited for this one to arrive. We have Daenerys Adventures, more specifically Daenerys RPG. 18,000 backers, $3.5 million raised, giving you both RPG content as well as more board game content if you want that. There's not just RPG stuff here, there's board game stuff here. Both of them are available with more Daenerys content in case you want any of that. We have Adventure Tactics, Adventures in Alchemy. This is the expansion to Adventure Tactics, giving you more Adventure Tactics, giving you the Alchemist class, giving you more everything for a very solid, very accessible dungeon crawling game of leveling up your characters in 14 billion different ways as you figure out their unique stats and all that. We have Dungeons Infinity Kingdom Cost by Sky Kingdom Games. Same people who did Isophian Guard. Sky Kingdom's Dungeon Infinity is a dungeon crawler game, but almost like a bit more math-based, a little bit grid-based. You'll be engaging different enemies and then laying them down in a grid as you try to tackle them, take them on. A little bit abstracted in almost the way the dungeon crawler played out, but a very solid game nonetheless, with a ton of new content, new revised stuff, new revised components of art, player boards, all these things from the original Dungeons of Infinity. We have Solosphere, Harness the Power of the Stars from Jonda Games. Solosphere is a game of, how do you even explain this one? This is basically dice placement. It's dice placement as you try to build out the Solosphere around the star to harness the energy of the star, working together, although it's not really a cooperative game, not in the slightest, it's not even semi-co-op. It's just a way of getting points. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to contribute to get points as you try to build out your unique engine, as you try to figure out how to upgrade your tableau, where to place your satellites in order to benefit from the fact that you'll be able to get better placements next time. It's basically dice placement, a fairly heavy, medium-weight dice placement, not really heavy, medium-weight dice placement, a Solosphere from Jonda Games. We have Shazan Azadi, What Will Freedom Cost? Shazan Azadi, this is the follow-up to Shazan. Shazan Azadi is giving you more of the same, but just, well, more of the same. It's a political, almost like a choose-your-own-adventure style area control game, kind of merging a degree of role-playing, but with area control and with managing a government. Very interesting game in terms of what it's doing. I need to play the base game. Very excited for this one. This is Shazan Azadi. We have Verdant from Flat Out Games. This is the 3rd game in their line of Cascadia, Calico, and Verdant. Verdant is bringing you, well, plants. You're going to have plants, and you're trying to be mindful of how you place your plants, how you place your various rooms, how you combine them all in order to score as many points as possible in Verdant. If you like Calico, if you like Cascadia, I think Verdant is up your alley. We have the Stuff of Legend from Third World Studios. The Stuff of Legend is was it a 1 vs many? I'm trying to remember if it's a 1 vs many. I can't even remember if it's a 1 vs many or a cooperative game. It was a cooperative game with a potential trader element. That's what it was. And so cooperative game with a potential trader element, as you basically are playing as these toys. Your boy has been kidnapped. You're following them out into the unknown. You're moving around the map. There may or may not be a trader in the game, as you're trying to be mindful of which exit the boy took, which exit this toy that he was kidnapped out of, as you try to track it down. So you're trying to fight against the board the entire time while being mindful of the fact that one of you may be fighting with the board against you. We have Keep the Heroes Out from Louis Bra. The Keep the Heroes Out is a dungeon crawling game. Not really dungeon crawling. You are the enemies in the dungeon. It's a tower defense game, kind of. You have all these heroes approaching, and you're trying to play as the various denizens of the dungeons, trying to keep the heroes out, using their unique powers and abilities, using the cuteness of the meeples to basically repel the various invaders. We have Drop Drive from Jason Maselli. Drop Drive is bringing you the same gameplay of Dungeon Drop, but in a slightly more improved system. So you have the same idea of you're going to be dropping components into a central board, but it's a little more control, a little more agency, feels a little bit more like a tiny epic game than it does like the pure chaos of Dungeon Drop. We have Tales from the Red Dragon Inn, a dungeon crawler game that uses the world of Red Dragon Inn in a dungeon crawling experience from Slugfest Games. We have Voidfall from Mindclash Games. Voidfall is bringing you a Euro 4X experience. 4X in space, all the fun typical 4X things you want, but with much more of a Euro focus because, of course, it is Mindclash after all. We have Roll Camera Reprint and Expansion from Malachi Ray Rempen. This is the expansion to Roll Camera, giving you more stuff for Roll Camera, more ways to play, more things, more content, more adjustments to the gameplay. Roll Camera is a game of trying to build out your film. You're trying to build out the best or worst film possible as you figure out how to either make a film so bad that it's terrible, or a film so good that it's actually, well, scores you points. We have Mythman from Out of My Mind, I think it's called. Ohm Games, Out of My Mind. Mythman Games bringing you a kind of what is it again? What are those games? I can't remember what they're called. Like Animal Crossing style gameplay in terms of giving you a game where the goal is not to win or lose. The goal is to play. You build so that you can build. You keep playing so that you can keep playing. You build out your village so you can keep building out your village. You utilize your unique craftsman abilities, your farmer, your merchant, your whoever, which you're using their abilities, building towards their strengths just so you can get more efficient. You're building so that you can build. You're building out this world around you, engaging in a story at the same time, but not actually having any lose condition on the table. We have Dandelions and Psychic Pizza Deliverers. Go to the Ghost Town. This is the last game expansion. This is the last game from Board Game Tables. I think it's the last one. Was there another one after this? I don't remember. There's one currently, but I don't remember if this is the last one or not. But Dandelions, another in the small box series, as you wander around in a circle trying to, I can't remember exactly what you're trying to do, but you're trying to do something. And we have Psycho Pizza Deliveries, Go to the Ghost Town, a game which one player is trying to communicate with the other players as far as how to avoid the ghosts in your Psycho Pizza Deliveries. You're trying to make pizza deliveries to Ghost Town, but you have to be mindful of avoiding the ghost. The only problem is I can see the ghost and you can't, so I'm trying to communicate that. And then lastly, we have Final Frontier Games, we have Bardwood Grove, a game but trying to craft your own song as you go through this game, building out your own deck. I believe it's deck building if I recall correctly. Could have been worker placement, I can't recall exactly. But Bardwood Grove from Final Frontier Games, and that is everything we have. My voice is going to hate me later, but I'm actually feeling fine past that. But this is everything as far as the late pledges. Apologies for the voice. I don't know when this will get better, and I don't have another video planned for tomorrow. So this is what you get. As a reminder, in the link down below, we'll have in the comments down below, I will have a links to all these in 2 separate comments in the pinned comment. I will link to all the new campaigns we're covering for the first time, the late pledges for the first time, as well as all the late pledges we're covering from prior campaigns. In the regular description, we'll have all the things timestamped, same as usual, and this is your late pledge video instead of the usual 2 back or not to back. We'll have one of those next week as usual, but for this week, and hopefully my voice will be back by then, but for this week, this is what you get. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Thank you for being here, and as always, have a good one. There's 2 muffins in the oven. Okay, 2 muffins in an oven. One turns to the other and says, "Wow, it's getting hot in here." Another one says, "Ah, talking muffin!"